motion to
formally call the meeting to order. And we'll begin with a roll call of the members. Anne Marie.
fully here.
Stephen. Shannon.
Here.
Trevor.
Yeah.
And Dave is here. So absent from the committee are just Elizabeth and Patrick. And we have with us our guest, Fiona, town planner, and Matt from Central Mass Regional Planning. So our major agenda item tonight is to update ourselves, get an update on the parcel prioritization project. Probably best to begin that with Matt, who can tell us what the latest is, what he's done since our last meeting.
Sure. Thanks, Dave. So since our last meeting, Dave sent me over his data layer of open space parcels from the town, along with assessor export that resolves some of the chapter land use code values in there. So using those two files, I went back into the OS priority model and revamped the data to reflect changes in the open space where there were some, and then also in the chapter land side, ran through all the model pieces, and re-exported the data into the Excel file, and then updated the PDF map. And those were the two files that I put into the OneDrive and sent back out, I think last week it was. Pardon me, sorry, my eyes bothering me. For you to take a look at and review. And Dave took an initial look at that. He noticed one thing on there, which was the 300, I think it was, or 200, I can't remember the number.
Yeah, 200 Westboro Road.
On there. Pardon me. For some reason my eye is getting all watery. So there was one of the records that's coming up as single POS, and the others are coming up as multiple POS on there. And then I took a look at that. I'm just gonna shut my camera off real quick to deal with my eye. Sorry about this. So I took a look at that on those, and I think it was more of just the ones that were showing up as multiple POS. Basically, when I went back and redid that, I went through and looked at the new open space data, and then found where there were issues, and then changed the values back in the data. And I think I missed those three when I changed them because they had different parcel ID numbers from the master one. So I re-changed those and reposted the table file. Those, or actually, I just changed those values in the one that's already in the OneDrive on there, and it didn't impact the map when I looked at it. It was still just showing from the single value, I believe. I'll double check that. But so that's where we are with the update on that. I don't know if you had a chance, anybody else had a chance to look at the updated Excel file and the map, if you had any additional questions or anything regarding either one of them.
Is that it by any chance? No, the papers.
Oh, what I printed out were the, not that we really needed to print out the meeting agenda, and this is the memo that Fiona sent out about the feedback we got from our questions to other boards and committees. So
I read the feedback. I just was looking for the actual that document. That's okay.
Matt, what's POS stand for?
Protected open space.
Protected open space.
Yeah.
So multiple protected open space, single open space.
We're looking for is protected open space identified.
yeah, let me see here.
And how was the feedback that you received from the other boards or groups?
Yes. So there's kind of two main topics that we could probably discuss. One is the results of Matt's work. In fact, let me see if I can I should be able to find it here. So I can
share anything on my screen if you want me to share anything.
yeah, unfortunately that, because the only screen we have here in the room is my iPad. I am looking for it on my, because my computer is hooked up to the projector here, so if I can just,
I didn't go through it because I just couldn't
Take-
digest it the way it was.
yeah.
I could get it printed out. and I can look at it.
Well, in fact,
That's
let me
just
do
fine.
it this way.
Plus just.
Let's see. I can't even get it to, let's do it this way here. Here we go. So if I can make this look right, I've got this in my, there we go.
Yeah.
So I've got this, a version of this on my, in my GIS. I've taken mass data and incorporated. So this is the map that Matt, this is the same, roughly the same coloring as Matt's map. For those of us in the room who can see it on the screen, I could point my iPad to it, but I don't think that would, no, that's not really going to help. So sorry about that for our difficulties with the network here, but so this is in Matt's, the PDF that Matt sent out is basically this with some more detail, and if you can enlarge it, it's much easier to read.
So can you just go through that? And I know I missed a meeting or so, so if you guys already went through this, let me know, but. So the parcel prioritization there, like the yellow, orange to red. What are those, like the 13.8 to 21.3?
Yeah, so those are the scores.
So
That Matt's right.
that
So
being high, like 13
yeah, so the highest score is 21.3.
out of the whole thing.
Yeah,
Okay,
so that's, so the score is the lowest score of all the parcels analyzed.
Yep.
The lowest score was 2.5, the highest was 21.3. You know, and Matt's basically divided them into 4 ranges here.
And what does the white, is that just built?
The white is land that's wasn't included in the prioritization.
Okay,
And on my picture here, the green, the green is, and the green is not on Matt's map. The green is the protected open space.
yeah.
And they're also difficult to see on the screen here. There's some, yeah, you really can't see it on the screen here. But I'm also showing in a sort of a fainter green kind of crosshatched. I put the town-owned land on here. So this is Matt's data plus a little bit more, which I had been doing. Somewhere I've got the actual picture that Matt sent out of it.
Yeah, that's okay, we saw, I mean, we got it too, so.
Yeah, and you've all got it. So some interesting things. I mean, if we sort of, and I kind of like to visualize things a little bit more. So what you see on the screen now, I've turned off the other colors and I'm just showing the higher priority ones in red, and you can kind of see that they tend to be close to protected open space. It's not surprising.
Dave, on the latest version of the PDF map that I did end up adding the protected open space as an additional layer to the map, which wasn't on the original version.
Right.
So just as a heads up, if there's some
Excellent.
other layers that you wanted to add to it, we can certainly add that into there as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, that's what you get.
Yeah, I'm really kind of annoyed that I couldn't get into the network, so where all of us could really see.
I can see this. This is
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
This works for me.
Yeah, I mean, those of us in the room can see what's on the screen.
Oh, okay, you're second.
It's, it's the folks on Zoom that can't really see what I'm showing here. Unfortunately, they always have some trouble with them. Anyway,
All right, so this map that you sent us is based on the priority, the prioritization that we came up with, correct?
yes,
Yep. Okay, so we're just looking to see this, comment on it, or?
yeah, so, I mean, one thing that I'd like to end up with here is just us saying that, yes, we're pretty happy with the prioritization work. And we will probably find some interesting ways to use this information. So I think the important part is, yes, do the results reflect what we hope to get in terms of the kinds of things that we see? Important.
Question, so the town-owned land is not necessarily the green, is that correct?
Right, so the green
It's
on
protected.
here
Yeah.
is,
Where's the town-owned land, I guess? Is
yes, so there's on the screen here, I'm pointing at one, which you can kind of see, it's a fainter green.
Yeah.
And I could print this out, or I could make this, turn this map into a PDF that I can share with everybody. This, for example, is the town-owned land. That's the Hennessy property on Old Westboro Road where the DPW building is, and the other rest of the Hennessy property. We've got, what is that? That's a parcel on 48 Worcester Street that we own, the town owns, we aren't doing anything with it. In a couple of cases, we've got town-owned land that's also been prioritized. This one is the Millbury Street School. Let's see, we've got.
Well, and I guess it probably doesn't matter too much, because Matt, when you were looking at this, that's how you came up with the prioritization, was if it was abutting something like that too, right?
Right, yeah,
Yeah, so
a
that's
major,
Yeah.
sort of one of the primary,
Yeah.
one of the important factors was proximity to protected open space. So that's where if we're looking here at the red parcels here on the map, they're pretty much all, you can see they're all touching some protected open space. One thing that I was wondering, and again, I kind of, one of the things I did with this, no, look at that, do I? Yeah. Oh, I see what I'm doing here. So I set this particular up in my, it might be interesting to find a way to make this GIS information more available, and I can do it on my computer. But this is this big red blotch here is the Tufts property. And while it is adjacent to some protected open space, the reason that it's included in this analysis at all is because it has historic points on it. It's all the old state hospital buildings are listed in the historic inventory. So that's the reason that it was the only reason that it was included in this analysis. But because of its proximity to open space, and it's got a weighted score of 3 for estimated wildlife habitat, some environmental protection potential, some proximity to well protection. So all of it abuts trails, it abuts town-owned land. So the score adds up to 16.5, even though the property itself is included in this analysis only because it contains something like 49 state hospital building historic points on that.
Well, it's also a large swath of open space too. I mean,
Yeah,
it's,
there's a fair amount of open space
yeah,
on the Tufts property.
So is this all the railroad, like coming out of the center? It kind of has a hash through it. There's a number of red along it. I don't know if you can, I can't really describe what I'm looking at, but if you're in the center of town and you're heading, see Upton Street, Route 140, just below that, there's a yellow swath there, 7.5 acres, or orange, I suppose. And if you keep going along, is that the railroad? Going all the way out, like
Yeah,
past Lake Wildwood, yeah.
yeah, that's,
Okay.
that would be the
So all
railroad.
those red parcels along the railroad. Can we determine from this, are they owned or not? Or that would be like another set of data that we would look into.
I mean, we have that data.
Yeah.
It's
It's just matching it up like.
right,
this. Yeah.
it's not represented on the map.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, we know who owns all these, well, we know who owns most of these.
Yeah.
There's actually one, it's,
It's kind of curious that there's a fair amount along the railroad between red and that bright orange.
The Excel table that is part of this has an owner one field in it. that
Right.
came from the assessor database as well, so.
And the other big areas over by Fisher.
so following up on this, it can be interesting to explore these a little bit more, see, think about what all these parcels are.
Yep.
And just as a couple of examples, there's one, and it's kind of along, I don't know how best to describe it. It is, let's see here, 15 Sunnyside Terrace rear is the address. And that's, it's very high in the part of this. It's a 19 score. Turns out that is, or was, Fisherville Pond. It's kind of dried up when the dam failed back in the early 80s. But there's a prospect of restoring that to pond. That happens to be a parcel on the assessors list, and we don't know who owns it. It's listed as owner unknown.
And where is Sunnyside as
Yeah,
it
where is
relates to the,
Sunnyside? I
as it
don't know.
relates to the mill?
That address.
I know,
So
I've seen that.
you zoom in on this. Sunnyside Terrace is, I'm not even sure exactly where to identify it on the map. This map doesn't necessarily show it. But it's kind of behind, there's the Fisherville Mill property, which is also given as a,
Oh,
Fairly high
Sunnyside,
priority.
okay, yeah.
but Sunnyside is kind
Oh,
of,
it's by Elmwood Street over there.
yeah.
So almost
And this,
Pleasant.
well, this parcel, the address is listed as 15 Sunnyside Terrace rear, but it doesn't actually touch Sunnyside Terrace. But that's like the nearest road to it, and so that's the address the assessors have assigned to it.
That's not where I thought it was.
can you explain, or can someone explain the pivot tables? I don't understand what that means.
No.
I looked at it, but I'm not getting it.
Yeah, so Matt can maybe explain it in a little bit more detail, but the pivot tables basically take and summarize or select information from the main table. So like one of Matt's pivot tables was the top 15, the 15 highest scores.
Okay.
And a whole bunch of different ways of looking at parts of the data.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a function within like Excel where you can
Yeah.
utilize information from another tab or cell, and it will do some automated formulas for you, summarizing
Yep.
totals or percentages or anything. So it's just kind of a quick way to make some, quick data tables showing you interesting but could be interesting information from the main master table.
Yeah, and I've done, because I sometimes like to look at things more visually. In my GIS here, I've done something similar. Where here I'm mapping out the top 15 parcels, and again, it's hard to read the detail on the screen. But here I'm just mapping where the top 15 parcels show up.
And that's the top 15 from this,
Right, that's
so down there, like that's the red.
right.
So
Yes, those are
Okay.
the 15 highest scores.
On this, okay. I mean, that's what I was just thinking is, again, for me, it's a lot to digest this way, but it would be so awesome if kind of almost what you're doing there, but you could see like if there's one level and then pull down the next level,
Yeah.
and the next level.
This is where it would be kind of cool, and maybe we can explore this and sort of somehow leveraging the GIS capabilities that the town has. Because I can do this on my computer and it's kind of neat, but making this kind of information more readily available. I know
Or
at times when we've been talking about land use, we've been thinking, wouldn't it be nice to be able to sort of see it on a map?
It's layering.
Here I've got the top
And for
30.
me, layering like on a piece of paper, which is
Yeah.
probably not.
Not ideal. It's a big piece of paper.
But maybe I could work on trying to figure it out if it was layered on here.
Yeah, so another view I got here is the of all of the chapter 61 parcels and how you can kind of see they're a mix of yellow, orange, and red. Top 15 chapter 61 parcels. There's
You do a lot with it, sure.
there's a lot, and that's probably one of the things that we want to think about is what kinds of pictures do we want to see? Besides the ones that we're sort of
What do we want to look at as opposed to
Yeah.
looking at everything?
Exactly.
right. I mean that complete map is
Overwhelming.
For
Yes.
me,
For all of us.
I
Yeah.
just, it was like,
this is just very busy,
Yeah, absolutely.
and
it's great. I mean, it's great,
Gives you a good overall picture.
for
And
sure.
looking at this, you've got to kind of get a sense of the different priorities or the different scores that we came up with.
Yeah, which is awesome. I think and everyone digests things different, right? So.
Yep.
I just have to,
So,
yeah.
So I guess like going forward from here, I mean, if we're basically comfortable with the data that Matt has produced for us,
Mhm.
we can then think more about and sort of taking into account what other folks
Mhm.
have said they were interested in getting from this. We can come up with the different ways of summarizing and showing the data that are meaningful for folks. And I've done a few things, as you can see, I've done a few things myself, just kind of the different ways I thought of to look at the data.
Right.
But I'm sure there are others, and depending on what you want to get out of it, you want to look at it. Sometimes a tabular format works well. Sometimes a visual format works well. So there's a lot that we can do with this now that we have it. But if we're pretty comfortable with the information that we're getting from
Data
this,
set that we're looking at.
then we can think about
Yeah.
how many different ways, how many different useful ways do we have of looking at it?
And how many different participants have different needs,
Yep.
and which is this letter detailed quite a bit of
Yeah.
that information.
So if that's the
Email.
question, then I find it certainly is the information that it's
We need.
great. If you
Yeah.
need it, it's taken us forever to do this, right? So.
Yeah.
And now, like you said, then figuring out, I suppose, not only for the folks who had specific questions, but even just, taking into consideration how people can view this, right? Like how to make, I don't know. I just feel like for me, it's like I need to see like a bunch of layers, but that's just me.
Yep.
I just.
Well,
I can't see.
as you can kind of see, given the data, we can
Yeah.
organize and present it in a lot of different ways. So
It's great.
whatever people need, I imagine we can make it. Right. We can make the pictures, we can make the tables,
Is there-
whatever people need.
It's knowing what the next step is gathering the people and understanding what their needs are with the data and how to apply those needs to the data.
And Fiona, like, I mean, particular to your office, do you have any input on that?
Yes, I do. So, for me, at least, I just wanted also to follow up on a point that Dave made earlier about how we can integrate this with the town's GIS. So that would be a huge priority for me personally, because we want to make this data available and usable for folks. And I've already sent the information to our GIS consultant who's working on some options and some test samples, I think, for lack of a better term, of how we can use it and show the information on the GIS. So one of the suggestions was like a pop-up. So I think it was Anne Marie who said it would be nice to be able to see who owns the parcels. So we have the data all in the Excel sheet. We can turn on a layer on GIS, the parcel map, as you're looking at it now, with the colors and the scoring criteria can show up. And then if you float your mouse over it or click on a parcel, even more information can pop up in like a little box. I don't know if folks are familiar with the town GIS, but this capability is enabled for the historic district and historic inventoried properties, where if you linger over it and click on it, a pop-up box shows up. So I was thinking something similar to that. So my biggest thing is how I would use this is try and make this available that way. I would also just be using it in general for as projects come up, as chapter land, as land is going through the removal of the chapter process, similar to what we did for 87 Milford Road, which is a high scoring parcel there along the railroad. The planning board and the Conservation Commission wrote a letter of support to acquire that parcel based on its connectivity to open spaces in Grafton as well as Upton. So that's a real life example, in addition to the GIS work that I just explained, is how I would utilize this data. We'd also, consider it for, when we have a lot of long range plans that we need to implement in our office, including the open space and recreation plan. So we would use this to implement those action items. We would use this for informing consultants. We would use this for property owners that approached us, because sometimes that does happen, where property owners will go directly to the planning department or the town administrator's office and say, my land, I'm looking to see what I can do with my land. I want to subdivide it, but I would like to give some to open space. And then you can kind of reference this and say, oh, that's a great, that's perfect for this. It's connected to, another open space parcel, or it's within a quarter-mile radius of a park, or what have you. So those are just kind of off the top of my head, the kind of key ways I would use this. Any policy making decisions, this will be huge. I know the Conservation Commission has been trying and actively working to acquire, or at least talk with landowners around Silver Lake. This would be a perfect tool and deliverable that we could present to show the importance of preserving that area.
Even like Ripple, there's a lot of red there too.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, one thing that, unfortunately, because we couldn't properly connect to Zoom here, those of you on Zoom can't really see it, but one of the things I did in my GIS here was to click on one of the prioritized parcel and bring up a form basically that shows how it got that score that it got. And, all the way from,
Oh, great.
I just clicked on the Tufts parcel, and so the parcel type, and if I were doing this for more public consumption, I would improve the formatting and because parcel type Histland PNT, that means it was selected for analysis because it had historic points on it. The final score was 16.5. Open space proximity, single protected open space, and so this sort of goes down the 12 factors that we include in there. So this shows you how it got the prioritization score that it came up with, which, you know, is kind of useful, because actually I hadn't, until I put this together, I had not actually looked at why the test parcel was included. And then I looked at it more closely and said, well, it's included because, and there are quite a few parcels that are included solely because they have a historic point of interest on them.
So
But-
I just,
But as a means of understanding why the parcel was rated the way it was, you know, I mean, you can look it up on the table too, but
Right.
you know, if you see it on a
You just
map,
Click it on a map.
being able to, you know, for those of us who prefer to look at a map and click on it, it's kind of useful. So that kind of goes along with that. It's that kind of idea that, you know, that I think some of what I've done here for myself in GIS is along the lines of what Fiona
This is what
described.
Fiona's talking about.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Very much.
And something else to note too, I mean, just from the planning department's perspective, is oftentimes, you know, we have developments that come before us and we try and work with conservation and all the applicable folks to secure portions of the subdivision or what have you to connect. So for example, the village Woodland Hill subdivision has a number of parcels that are dedicated to open space because there's connections between that subdivision and other important areas. So we would use this in those instances as well. So if development proposals are before us, we can use this as a negotiating tool to condition our permits to allow for more connections.
I was just gonna say, you know, thanks to the CMRPC folks, because I'm really excited to hear that planning and conservation, you know, more importantly, I feel like that me can use this when things like you just said come before you, and now we have some data to back up like the important things to this committee, such as open space. And so now there's actually something tangible here, so I'm super excited about that. And I know just at our Ask Me Anything the other evening on Thursday night, just FYI, you know, somebody who's a realtor was mentioning how in some towns that she's a realtor in, she was asking us if we do anything with developments, new developers coming in here, not 40B, not LIP, just regular old like Institute Road type developer. And like, do we have any leverage, or what do we do in terms of getting something back, right? Like maybe just an acre, or maybe she was saying Westboro, you know, they get parks, different things. And the answer was somewhat, you know, a no, but now here's something, right? And that you guys at planning board say, well, just for kicks, there's a half acre over there, you know, whatever the case may be, right? And here you got it, right? You've got something to show them and say, this is actually important to the town.
Right, and it was briefly mentioned then at the AMA that one of the things we do routinely do with subdivisions is get open space. Something like this may actually be helpful in guiding some questions or answering questions about where in that subdivision should that open space be. So I think this can be helpful there. That is the one thing that we routinely do is we get, we get them to, usually it's turned over to the town. Sometimes it's protected in other ways, but this can, if anything, this will strengthen that.
Right, and I think that we could, depending on the the parcel or parcels that are being reviewed under the planning board's purview, you can take a look and say, okay, well, your site plan says that, you're subdividing the lot and you're building a single family lot here, but there actually is a neighboring parcel. Could you give like a portion of that lot, a little bit, dedicate a little bit more of a portion of that lot to create this connection here? And here's the scoring criteria, because it's, it's got, there's all the criteria is not coming to me at the moment, but like it's within a half a mile radius of another park. There's a Grafton Land Trust trail right behind the site. Things like that. Like we can pull it out and send. You can literally, because the Excel sheet is so workable that you can just quickly zoom in on the parcel in question, check how it ranked, realize, oh, it hits this, this, and this, and this in particular is important to us, and then we kind of use that as leverage and kind of negotiate for more opportunities.
That's what I just wrote down was, it gives you leverage, right, and data.
Mhm.
Two awesome things when you're going into negotiations with some sort of a developer. And additionally, a lot of folks in our town are for preserving open space, right? Retaining the Grafton that they kind of moved here for, but there's not really like data to back up. It's just, you can't just say we just randomly want all this space, right? So I think that in this respect as well, right? Here it is, it's tangible. Here's what's owned, here's what's not, here's what might be a priority. We can't buy everything, but I think it'll help in that way too for
Yeah.
folks that are, feeling that there's so much development, there's no looking at open space. And now planning can say, hey, we're looking at this thing and that parcel actually was garbage anyways. We want this one, so.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why we included this in the open space and rec plan.
Right.
To address exactly that.
All right, so good. Awesome.
Can I
Yeah.
ask,
Well done.
to Dave and Fiona, is now a good time to talk about, because we were just talking about leverage, and I know from talking to the land trust and reading through the feedback, there was a little bit of concern about, not only can we use it as leverage, but also private landowners could possibly use this as leverage
That's a good
to,
point.
I'd be concerned about that.
yeah, so
Mhm.
how
But
will
this is
that
all,
be treated?
this is all public information, is it not?
It is,
Yeah.
Right, it is, yes.
Just now that we're showing
yeah,
people
yeah,
that,
exactly.
oh, right, by the way, right by your house is something.
I wanna buy that lot, I wanna buy that lot, I need to put a house on there, it's like, oh, God.
Yeah.
You know,
So I'm sorry, I couldn't see who was speaking, but I did see, sorry.
Shannon was,
Oh, Shannon, Shannon, that's a good point. And I did, honestly, I hadn't thought about that until I saw the feedback and I was like, yeah, it's definitely something to consider. So I just want to be clear. I just want to confirm, like, is the concern that private landowners will see that their parcel ranks high on the map and that they would be more inclined to, I guess I didn't fully understand.
That's how I read it was, in other words, so next to my house, maybe I own 2 or 3 acres over there. Now I'm retired, I'm moving along, and I see all of a sudden like, ooh, it's a red parcel, so I can, kind of go for it. But I guess the market will bear what it will bear though, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
I don't know. It's
it,
a good point.
to me,
yeah.
it's a point worth thinking about.
Yeah.
But also, depending on the nature of the property that you're considering, if you are the owner of a Chapter 61 parcel, this really,
How many of them up there in red are 61? Are there any?
well, let's see here. The top 10 61 parcels are, there's a few scattered around. This is all the 61 parcels. Yeah, and there are actually not very many Chapter 61 parcels highlighted in red. But in any case, the Chapter 61 process is the town gets the first right to buy the land based on the price you got selling it to a private developer or a private party who wants to convert it from the protected use of the tax favored use of whether it's forestry, agriculture, or recreation. You first have to, you're going to hang on to it until you decide you want to sell it. You get someone who wants to buy it, and maybe they want to buy it to put a house or a subdivision on it. You get a purchase and sale agreement. The town then has the right to buy that from you for that price. So the price you're going to, that land's price, the sale price there is going to be based upon the land, whatever use the buyer has proposed for it. But that's unlikely to be influenced by its ranking here.
And by the way, it doesn't really pertain to what we end up with in terms of our high ranking. So I think it's really
Yeah.
more relates to the scenario that I kind of threw out there, whether or not to buy my house or not, it's a parcel I own. And now I see that it's some value, but I mean, I guess Shannon, the way I looked at Rob's, I appreciated his comment because I hadn't thought of it that way, and it makes sense to a certain degree,
does.
right? But I don't know if it's
Yeah.
worth, like, I think there's still the value here,
Yeah.
right, either way. And I wonder how many, if we really whittled it down, you know, that's when it would be handy to see like, what are they, who are they owned by, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I
I
just
think,
wanted to be able to, that
To
we
let
were
them know.
prepared to answer that question
Yeah.
if someone else in the public asked it.
yeah,
Sure.
I'm
Absolutely.
trying to think of how I would leverage the ranking to make money. First of all, I'm probably not the owner of a chapter 61 property because the ranking is.
I don't even think it's a 61, I think it's just
Right,
any of
but
these
in
little.
general, so
Oh, I see,
I'm
right.
thinking of, right, I'm thinking of a piece of land I own that's not chapter 61. And am I gonna be able to get more money for that because it's ranked highly here?
Mhm. I
The
get it.
answer, the answer is probably not, because if I'm thinking of selling it to the town, the town's gonna have a sense of the value that it has to the town. But if I'm thinking of selling it, am I gonna sell it to the town or am I gonna sell it to someone else? The chances are, if I'm selling it to someone else who's gonna develop it, that's probably worth more to them than it ever would be to the town, no matter how highly ranked it is.
However,
Hmm.
developer that wanted to buy that would pump up the market value. And then we step in, it's like, well, we'll buy it, but we're now gonna buy it at the $150,000 more, just because
And
it had that
Like, I'm thinking-
valuation.
chances are,
An example of it is the Silver Lake, like those parcels, which I know are of interest, yeah. And so they're obviously coming in higher, and then would the owner of those, for some reason, say, hey, I can get something extra, but to Dave's point, sell it to the developer, make a heck of a lot more.
Yeah.
But with some, obviously some restrictions, so, yeah.
yeah, I know.
It's a hard one. It's a good, I think
It
it's
is,
a good point.
it's a good point.
Yeah.
You can probably come up with at least one scenario, maybe not very likely, but still plausible, where someone could find a way to flip that property to the town and make some extra money.
So let me add another question on this. This, what we've put together, Matt's put together, is this public information now because we've done it? Because it's done as part of, we're working for free for the town. Matt's working under a contract for the town. So it really is town information. We can't
Yes.
withhold it.
It's in our
Correct.
minutes, so,
Yeah.
right, or.
Yes, we can't, yeah, the information is public. Now, sort of tangentially related to this is in the open space and recreation plan, we included an open space inventory. And in that inventory, we listed all the chapters, all the parcels that were at that time under one of the chapter 61s. We did not include the owner's name in that, or any owner information in that table. We did include the address of the parcel, that's public information. The owner's name is public information too. You can go on the town's website, on the assessors, on the town's GIS, and find all that. But we did not, and I think, that was generally advice given at the time we put that together, was don't include the owner's names.
Mhm.
It's not really helpful as part of the open space inventory anyway to have it's the location of the property that's of interest, it's not the owner. And
Right,
while
exactly.
with only a little bit of work, you can find the owner's name for any of those parcels, we chose not to publish that.
Yeah, and we'll, I'm assuming we'll choose not to
Right.
put that in any type of
Right.
advanced database that we want to put together. But Fiona's point, it's just, I want to be able to click here to see what this property is. We don't link the owner to it.
Right, although if this information is integrated into the town's GIS, through the town's GIS, you can find the property owners.
Right.
So, I mean, it's,
You can almost.
right, in terms of these,
It-
right,
You can figure it out if you really motivate it. Yeah.
in terms of the essential information from the parcel prioritization perspective, the ownership, the identity of the owners is not relevant to the priority that we
Right,
assign to the
right.
parcel.
Yeah, no, it's just a matter of the owners are gonna know, that's all, yeah.
Yep.
Does that answer it a little bit?
It's
Does
good,
that
it's
answer your
good
question?
discussion. We have the.
Yeah, no, I just wanted
discussion
to make sure we
notes.
discussed it and, you know, that we were prepared
Yeah,
to answer, you know, Rob and anyone else who would ask about that, so.
It sort of reminds me, not to get too far off topic, but it sort of reminds me of something that happened quite a number of years ago in Westboro, where they were looking for land on which to build a new school. And the various, a list of the various parcels of land that they were considering was made public, which probably you can't avoid that because all takes places in open meetings. But the owner of one parcel apparently suffered a heart attack or some other health issue, and their family blamed it on the town, making it known that they were thinking about buying the land. They were thinking about that land as a candidate for the school. But again, with the only way you can not make information like that public is to have it brought up within the context of an executive session, where it's and the circumstances for that are pretty limited. And it's basically, yeah, if you're doing some actual, engaged in some actual planning strategy for negotiation, then you can keep it private. But that's not where we're at with this. We're, you know, all we're doing here is analyzing various parcels of land in terms of their potential value as open space.
do we, need to see the folks from CMRPC and or Fiona for any more?
Yeah, so that's kind of leading up to, you know, I think one of the questions for us is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Fiona, but one of the things we basically need to do is at some point we need to say, this job is done, been done to our satisfaction, and CMRPC has done everything we asked, and again done it in a way we like.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, that's correct, Dave.
So are we there?
I'm there.
Yeah,
They
absolutely.
can just give me layers of papers.
Yeah, we can follow this up.
Emery can't follow, but everyone else can.
Yeah, we can follow this up with
I'm kidding.
50 ways to present the
Yeah,
information on paper and online.
Answer is yes. It's a yes from Anne Marie.
May I ask before they
Yeah.
go real quick, where is this information going to like live? Like, where's the master copy? Because I know Dave's doing stuff on his computer, but where does it go?
Sure, I can answer that. So I was planning on having all kind of pertinent boards and committees and departments have this living on their webpage. Planning, Concom, planning board, Trails Committee, obviously Open Space and Rec Committee. I'm probably missing a few, but that was my goal, was to basically have it as available as possible, in addition to integrating it with the GIS, the town GIS, which is heavily utilized. A home base, I mean, we can have it live on the planning and Concom pages if that's preferred. I'm really open to, I'm open to really any suggestion that the committee is comfortable with.
It's not a matter of ownership, it's just availability. That's all.
Yeah.
all we need.
I would like to,
Like how, like what format will it be available? Like, is it just a PDF or is it shape files or what is it?
it would be, well, I'm envisioning the best, I mean, I was thinking of utilizing the map and the Excel spreadsheet so that people can see, because the Excel spreadsheet really has all of the data, which, you know, as we've discussed this evening, it is all public data anyway, and just being, and having, you know, like an explanation of, on like our project page saying, this is what this is, this is how we developed the information. You know, you can download it and use the data and review it, you know, it's, that I was thinking of focusing more on the map and the Excel sheet, for folks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Like, are we think, I guess a follow-up question would be, are you envisioning like a, what's the word? Like like a, I don't know, I like a more like, interactive, like method of sharing the information beyond the GIS, or?
Well, I guess for me, I was wondering like where we could share the narrative about parcels, like information that we might know personally or know as a group, like for a basic example, like that Tufts parcel, it was highlighted red, right? Like someone looking at that, is there a way to capture everything that we talk about and that we know about that parcel, like in one place? So that different groups don't have to start from scratch when they're like looking at a parcel.
yeah, I think a couple of things that come to mind. One is as far as what you might consider the home of this information, the planning department has a page where it collects all sorts of plans and studies. And so a page on there for this plan, and within that page, various documents, as Fiona mentioned, the Excel spreadsheet and the PDF map are sort of two basic things. But beyond that, I mean, the Excel spreadsheet tells you, if you look up, again, going to my tough spot, if you look up 200 Westboro Road in that Excel sheet, you'll see going across, you'll see all the scoring. So you can get from that everything you need to know about how it ranked and why it was ranked that way. For folks who would prefer to maybe like to click on it on a map, the GIS would be the place for that.
Yeah.
And I think
we could link it.
Yeah,
We could link that on the page and just say, oh, here's the data in, in a more, on the town GIS page that is also, also available if people prefer, more visual instead of, having to go through the Excel spreadsheet.
right.
But the PDF map too will be available.
And what we probably will want to consider is producing a variety of maps, and not just the one map that sort of shows you everything. I mean, we've talked a little bit this evening about it, some different visualizations, different maps that might focus on different categories of information. And in the GIS, at least one, a GIS layer that is really dedicated to the prioritization here, you could, I would probably want to see where you can click on it and bring up what the folks in the room here can see on the screen is when I click on a parcel, I get all the information. The information says, here's how it's scored, and here's how that score was developed.
Matt, were you gonna say something back there?
Yeah, I think I heard Matt at one point.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you may also want to think about whether or not you want to lock any or parts of the Excel file, so that it can't be changed or whatever, if that's something to think about.
Yeah.
Or just to help prevent people from accidentally like deleting off a formula, which then zaps their Excel file, and then they're like, it's not working for me, or I'm getting different results or stuff like that. So
That's an important consideration. If we're expecting people to download the Excel file and manipulate it in some way, or potentially manipulate it in some way, then yes, it calls to my mind the example of the state's Excel workbook for the MBTA community zoning, where they had this incredibly complex, and Matt knows this perfectly well, I'm sure, incredibly complex spreadsheet, but everything was pretty carefully locked in there, so you couldn't mess up the formulas, and you really couldn't. They only allow you to put into it the data that they're asking you to put in. And here, this is, for the most part, it's intended to be read only.
Right.
And then, so
Right.
yeah, we can it's difficult to present that information in any form other than for a lot of reasons. It's probably helpful to have it downloadable as a spreadsheet, but yeah, you don't want people to be messing it up.
So Fiona, would that be through you? You guys would handle that, or would that be IT, or that's Matt, or?
I mean, we can easily, upload lock it and upload the information on the page like tomorrow, but I wanted to, I guess I just want to make sure that when we go it's all public, but when we like officially are ready to go, that everything is exactly how the committee wants it, and we start circulating it. Because once we put it out there,
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to go back. So yeah, that's why I think, getting the comments from the folks who responded to me about how they would use it, nothing came up. I mean, other than Rob's valid point there, but nothing really came up as a glaring issue. And I think if we're ready to go public with it, the select board hasn't voted it hasn't made a vote on it yet or anything, but I don't see why we couldn't start post it
I
tomorrow.
like been going on the trails committee info, and then I wondered if, just like we were talking about, like obviously beyond planning and conservation, but given that open space and rec, like I just looked at our page and it's not very there's not a lot in there in a good way. So I think that might be a good spot to have these extra features, because when I go over to the planning page, it's a little overwhelming in some ways.
Right, I think there's an important point here that while we might consider the plans and studies area in the planning department as sort of a place for all this, because it kind of fits in with.
Sure.
That's not the only place you want. You would, at the very least, you would want to link to that from all the other pages.
It's just a link. It's not, you don't have a separate copy in each one of those locations.
okay.
You have a
So,
link to that
yes.
source.
So if you're looking on the Trails
So I'm
Committee
gonna look
page,
at planning department to find this.
Or the link on whatever.
so we put a link to it on the Trails page, on the Conservation page, on the
I guess
Open
my
Space
point is
Committee
just,
page.
for me,
You want to make it accessible.
Yeah.
From all the
So when
right
I looked up,
places.
like open space and rec, we only have 4 little tabs over here, 2 of which are maps similar, right? So
Yep.
boom, that
Yeah,
seems to.
so if you're on the open,
intuitive.
right,
Yeah.
exactly, if you're on the Open Space and Rec page, you want to be able to click on
Find
that
this
and
thing.
get to this.
Yeah, okay,
And it's in the nature of a website that you can have links to one place from many different
sure,
places.
yep, okay,
So yeah, that's one of the key features of the web.
I'm ready.
Sorry, I have one more annoying question
Yeah.
before they leave. So once CMRCP-PC is not involved anymore, if there do need to be edits to certain things like criteria based or rankings based on new information that comes to light or based on someone's personal knowledge, like the land trust has a lot of knowledge about many of these properties. Is there do we have someone in-house who can make edits or update the database, or do we have to pay an outside person to do that?
With
I'm pointing.
with the information Matt has provided for us, we can do a lot with it. I mean, it's
Right.
not
We
completely
can open up
frozen.
the Excel
I mean,
file. and
Matt-
make
right.
adjustments.
Matt set up the Excel file so we can change weights, we can change formulas. Those of us who are able to edit an Excel file and are willing to do it and maybe know enough about Excel to not make a total mess of it. And the same thing with the GIS information I've
Yeah.
taken the shape file that Matt provided And as you've seen, I've done a number of different visualizations based on that. So
So
with that data, there's some of the work that Matt did would, we could even go back and, add criteria or change some elements of that. Some of it's a little bit more work with the GIS and with the data. But ultimately, if we find something that really needs to be, that we really kind of sort of rebuild it from the ground up, we might go back to Matt and company to do that.
So it's a yes.
Otherwise, we can
But I
figure
have
it
a
out.
question for you, Shannon, on that, like, would it be beneficial for, when is the land trust meeting next time? Would we wanna just hit pause for a hot second, just so that you all look at this?
They have,
Okay, perfect, okay,
I mean, they've,
I know you weighed in, but,
Yeah,
okay,
Ken Holberger and,
right,
Rob gave input.
Right.
Yes, yes, and Ken had a lot of good points as
Yeah.
well. I didn't want to, Ken was in the, similar to what Shannon is saying, asking about, potential to add, and I think, to piggyback off of what Dave said, yes, there's capabilities in-house. However, we also have the GIS consultant, if it's something, a special project that we want to do. We have a line item in our AppGeo budget that allows for that. We also have LPA hours with CMRPC that we can use. I think we have 20 hours. There's always opportunities for me to apply for district local technical assistance funding. It's like, that's twice a year. So it's
quite a bit of
not
opportunity.
as frequent, but I can do that. There's options.
so land trust has looked at this, and now if they've seen the map, there's not like something that's huge glaring red flag per se. It's just a matter of making sure that if and when we have more information, then obviously, yes, the answer is we can,
Yeah.
okay, perfect,
That,
so that's good.
Shannon, my concern with Ken's question was, I think he was starting to head in the direction of like redoing the criteria, and I was, obviously this is a town-sponsored project and and we want to incorporate the feedback, but I think that it would be kind of counterproductive this stage to redo that criteria, and then, because we'd have to
right.
start again.
I think what I got out of his comment was, if they have site-specific knowledge that might affect the ranking of a particular parcel, could they maybe bump that one up or down, adjust it that way? I didn't get the feeling that they wanted to overhaul any criteria. I had sent the criteria to them back in, whenever we first started this. And I didn't receive, and they didn't seem to have any major comment on it, so.
I would think we'd like them to have a seat at the table when we start
Yeah.
to talk about the property. So if
Exactly.
they have that input, if they think there's more value to a particular property, they're gonna be listening to that.
Yeah, no, in fact, that sort of reminds me of one element of this that we've talked about off and on, is that these rankings are not sort of gospel.
Right.
They are hints that this property appears to have high value for open space. But when you get down to looking at a specific parcel, you will take this ranking as one of several factors that you evaluate. As a couple of examples, kind of of that kind of thing, that what this ranking may or may not mean. I mentioned earlier that one parcel was actually Fisherville Pond. Although it's kind of dried up now, but eventually it might be refilled. So that it ranks high, but it's already basically reserved as open space, because it was part of Fisherville Pond, and it's likely to be again part of Fisherville Pond. So yeah, it ranks high. You can kind of see why. I mean, it makes sense, but it's not something that the town is likely to ever need to literally acquire. Another one of the highly ranked parcels is basically Hayes Pond, which is no one's ever going to build on it, so it kind of already is open space. Another parcel is 21 Flat Street. on that parcel is the Grafton Water District's well. The parcel as a whole is owned by the town. The town already owns it. It's just not 100% protected in perpetuity. It is largely occupied, in addition to the well, by a solar farm and wetlands. So we looked at that not too long ago as a potential site for a cell tower, and it's pretty much, like I said, the town owns it. I don't know that it needs to be further protected than it already is. So when you look at parcels individually, you learn things about them that aren't evident just from looking at the map. And again, the ranking here is it's a guide, but you might look at high-ranked parcels for opportunities to. I mean, there's a few town-owned parcels that are they're not protected open space. They're pretty highly ranked. You might think about maybe the town placing them under a higher level of protection. For Chapter 61 parcels, as we talked about, this is one piece of information that you use to evaluate whether the town should exercise its right. If the town is looking to acquire land for some reason, take this into consideration. But yeah, in connection with each one, you might want to find a way to sort of add information. Just something to think about. I don't know where the extent to which I'd want to pursue that at this point, but you could maybe add like a section of notes about this parcel to the, or you might think, well, no, we don't necessarily need to keep that as part of this data, but just keep in mind that this isn't the only thing that we would ultimately be using, right?
Yeah.
So, anything more that we need to do with this tonight? I think it sounds like we're all in agreement that we think CMRPC's done a good job and they've delivered everything we expected.
Yeah, Matt and team have done a fantastic job.
Thank you.
It
Thanks.
really is nice.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it. It was a fun project to work on, so.
Yes, and I was curious as to how we might go about ranking parcels. So this whole process has been it's been very interesting to see how you guys approached it, and I think, as I said, we're happy with the result. I am,
Yeah, very much so.
and there's a lot that I can do with this information. Sometimes I just have fun playing around with the GIS sometimes.
Who doesn't?
Well, we're not all GIS nerds.
Yes, thank you, Matt. Just, of course, you know that I am forever grateful for you and the CMRPC team for all that you do for Grafton. We have about 20 projects in rotation at any given moment. So thank you so much. I just wanted to confirm with the committee before we leave that we didn't want to, and I think that this is something that we can do, planning can host or whatever, but there was a comment from Andy Jefferson from the select board about doing maybe a little bit more outreach. I don't know if that's something that the OSRC wants to consider before we move this to the select board. That was in the packet.
I just wanted to note that at the end of his letter, he did say us, and that didn't come from the select board. That was just his individual feedback,
Yeah.
Yeah, and Andy does make the point too, and this has also come up in other conversations, that from the town's overall point of view, when we're looking at potential land acquisition, open space and recreation is not the only thing that we might need to take into consideration. This committee's work was focused on open space and recreation because that's what our committee is. But in terms of other potential land uses, you could probably undertake an exercise somewhat similar to this, but you'd have to come up with whatever criteria. For example, land that might be particularly suitable for housing. We didn't even begin to think about that as part of this exercise. And
Well, that was
Right.
ours. There's
that was,
plenty of other
right,
committees
that was not within our purview. We did not, from the very beginning, we
There's
explicitly
plenty
said,
of other committees that are, you know.
we're looking at this. Now, but what it may suggest is if the town wanted to do something similar to this for purposes other than open space and recreation, this is sort of a model for how you might go approach it.
The data's already there. What do you want to do with it? And look at all the open space and start evaluating it. Where do you want to put senior living, for example?
But that's not our job as an
It's
open space and
not,
recreation.
but you have the data right
And we've
there.
got some data here, and some of this data might turn out to be useful for purposes other than open space. Maybe, as I think Anne Marie kind of hinted, that where we want to potentially locate certain kinds of projects, we might want to avoid land that's most valuable as open space. So in that sense, this can feed right into that.
For me,
Right,
to answer your question, Fiona, I feel like I'm ready for it to go out, and then I think that we could, you know, back that up at some point if folks wanted some sort of a forum, which, you know, wouldn't be my forte per se, but if that was something that, you know, there was a public appetite for.
yeah, that makes sense. I think I just wanted to make sure, I think really more than anything, I just wanted to make sure that I at least acknowledged it and ran it by you
Yeah.
all before, because, you know, if we did need to do some additional outreach for whatever reason, I mean, I agree with the group that, you know, I see them, I see the point he's trying to make and the merits there, but I also, as everyone has mentioned, this is very specifically for open space. That was the intention. It's a recommendation or open space and recreation plan. And the intent and the purpose is really not to focus as much on other types of land uses per se. Again, I understand what he's trying to do here, but I also, I agree. I agree.
And it's, you know, it's born from the open space, you mentioned the master plan, but like it's born from the open space and recreation master plan, so to speak, right?
Right.
Or the plan,
Yeah.
so, you already did that route and here we are.
Now, as we all know, we are working on a master plan.
Mhm.
And the
Right.
master plan, we haven't really started working on the land use chapter of the master plan yet, but the master plan is covering land use, all land use in the town, basically. So we might end up, as part of the master plan, having an action item to do some prioritization work for purposes other than open space. That could be something that comes out of the master plan. It's not, again, that's not our job.
Right, and I guess I was kind
I'm
of
blessed.
confused. I was kind of confused as to like some of the points that where, you know, if something is ranking off the charts, you know, 21 points, obviously, like the priority is obviously going to be, you know, for open space and open space only, you know, like, I guess I kind of was trying to figure out
Yeah, because
where he
that's
was
the
going with that.
criteria.
Yeah.
That's the criteria we used.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I know, you know, in some of my conversations with Andy specifically, that we have talked about, you know, the sort of the bigger picture of trading off or balancing priorities for all the potential uses of land within the town. And
Right, and you could
I
look at like some of the parcels that's scoring lower and, you know, that kind of thing. Like I get where he's going. Okay.
so I kind of know where Andy's coming from, and that wasn't the goal of this particular project.
Any property that's put forward for open space possibilities is going to be looked at by everybody.
Yes.
Why aren't you using it for this? Why aren't you using it for that?
Well, and
And
even,
those are fair questions.
Yeah, and we did, yeah,
And even
not,
in this
Without
room,
birds.
right, that's the beauty of, if you know, we had the whole committee, right, it's, okay, so Steve, what you're looking at for recreation is gonna be a little bit of difference from, you know, what land trust is looking at in
Right,
terms of
right.
priorities, so that's okay, that's cool too.
yeah, we had, again, not to get too far off track, but, you know, I can remember when a couple of the Robinson parcels along Silver Lake came up, you know, the last two, we had a discussion about whether it would make sense to use a portion of those parcels for some housing, particularly because they are right across the street from a small, modest-sized condo development. So there was housing right across the street. So we had, you know, we had some discussion about, those were Chapter 61 withdrawals. We had some discussion about potentially using a portion of that for some purpose other than open space. We concluded that open spaces was it really it. That's what we wanted. But you know, we did have that discussion.
I know, I was there, sorry.
Let's,
I need to-
let's
So,
do the
yeah.
minutes.
So we're all set, Fiona and Matt. We will follow up. I know, you know, I'd be happy to follow up with you anytime, Fiona, about thinking about, you know, the various ways we might present this information. We've got the information. We've talked a lot about different ways of looking at it. We can follow up on that, and we'll probably find as people look at the information, we'll probably find that, you know, they come up with some useful ways of looking at it that we didn't think of. But that all
Okay.
can follow up. That all can follow after what we've done now.
Sure, so just so I'm clear, the next steps for me at least will be to upload lock the information and start working on the website and getting this information out there, and then I'll work to get this on the next applicable select board agenda for approval, if everybody is okay with this. And then Matt, we have a couple of LPI hours from Matt that we're going to use, so Matt will be present for that select board meeting as well, in case there's any in-depth questions that are over my head.
Great,
All right,
thank you,
good.
Fiona.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Fiona. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
Matt.
Do you have
Bye.
the, is there a select board meeting date yet scheduled or anything, or?
I thought it was the 9th, but I just saw something today about the 2nd, yeah, I emailed today, so I could email you, Fiona, get the information if you just wanna ask next door.
Sure, yeah, that actually, both of those dates are I will be away.
Okay, so my understanding it was the 9th, and then whatever that would be the 23rd, but on the weekly report last week, it indicated the 2nd, so we can get that probably tomorrow to you.
Okay, yeah, I mean, if the group isn't opposed, if we could wait until after I'm on vacation,
Oh, of
that'd be
course.
fine, but if we
Yeah.
want to move it along faster, you know, I'm happy to do any preparation that's required to get it going, so.
I think waiting is fine, what do you guys think?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks.
All right, thank you all.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Have the rest of your night.
Good night.
I didn't wanna use up all his hours like listening to stories because it's
Yeah.
handier to have at the select board meeting or whatever we need them again, so I don't know like hours left.
So I think I heard a motion
Yeah,
about to be
let's-
made to approve the
I'll
minutes.
make a motion to approve the minutes from October 18, 2023.
I think we already approved those in January. I reviewed the tape of that meeting. Just to be
So we
sure.
have December and February to
Okay, so-
approve.
We only have February to approve.
Just.
We
okay,
approved
all right.
October and December.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve.
Good job,
the
Steve.
Minutes from February 15, 2024.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes from February meeting. Any discussion? Hearing none. Have to make a roll call vote here. Anne Marie,
Oh, yeah.
Steve?
Yes.
Shannon,
Aye.
Trevor,
Aye.
and Dave votes aye. Motion carried unanimously.
Excellent.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
And just before we adjourn, I owe minutes from one of the meetings, the one time I said I would do them, and I still haven't, but I will get them to you for the next, within, very shortly, I'm sorry.
All right, so the chair would recognize a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Second,
Moved and seconded. Not debatable. Anne Marie,
totally, aye.
Steve,
Steven, yes.
Shannon,
Aye.
and Trevor.
Aye.
And Dave votes aye. Motion carried unanimously.